So, it's been a few months since the Look Back anime adaptation released, and I still see the same question pop up around online where there's confusion as to why does it end the way it does. So, let's talk about it. If you have not yet read or watched Look Back, I highly encourage you to save this video and come back to it later as I'm going to get into full discussion about the ending and themes of Look Back. So, let's go back to the very beginning. Look Back was one of the many one-shots created by Tatsuki Fujimoto during his hiatus from Chainsaw Man. And with the main story being about these two characters, Fujino and Kyomoto, you can also see that there's a little bit of wordplay here with Fujino and Kyomoto, Fujimoto. So you can very easily deter from here that these two characters might be a representation of Fujimoto himself and different aspects of his artistry. Now, if we look from here, their two paths as artists kind of align in the beginning as they work together, but they do represent two very different types of artists. Fujino representing a storytelling, narrative-based type of artistry who wants to tell stories through their manga artistry, and then Kyomoto being more of a fine artist who wants to work on backgrounds. And then, as we get to the midpoint of the story, that's when they decide to separate, to either go for a career or to go to college. And this separation is what inevitably leads to Kyomoto's end when Kyomoto decides to go to college. Now, this is the point where I see the question pop up about why did Kyomoto have to die? This is the point where people say that this is the part of the movie that disappoints them, they're unsatisfied, they don't understand why this happens. Now, based on many interviews I've read, it seems that the consensus is that Fujimoto said that he was inspired by the KyoAni attacks, the Kyoto animation attack that happened in 2019. There was a person who came to the studio and committed arson, killing 36 people. It was a massive tragedy to a very large scale. It hurt the animation industry greatly there in Japan. However, there is another way to interpret this, and this is my personal interpretation that I have as an artist, and I just want you to follow along and hear me out to see how it fits into the narrative. So my theory kind of hinges on that Fujimoto was these two artists, Fujino and Kyomoto, but that committing to working on Chainsaw Man, he eventually had to kill, essentially, his fine art self because you cannot kind of manage both. Becoming a mangaka is a very busy and time-consuming thing to do. And if you look over the course of his work, you can see that like there are certainly definitely changes you can see in the art alone that shows how time-consuming and how busy becoming a full-time mangaka is. For example, if you look back in some of his earlier works, like earlier chapters of Chainsaw Man, Fire Punch, even these one-shots like Look Back and Goodbye Eri and stuff, you can see that there are moments where Fujimoto has these like brilliant spreads, these moments of deep artistry, and like all of his work is beautiful, but you can see that there are moments where it's really, going to a fine arts level and that potential is in him. However, if you look at like the latest chapters of Chainsaw Man, the most recent ones, Fujimoto has switched to a monoline style, meaning that the line weight is just one specific line weight with no taper. And the reason for that is so he can put out the chapters a little bit faster. It just makes it for easier workflow, and it just kind of simplifies the process because it is really hard work to be a mangaka. And if we look historically at mangakas over time, we see that it's kind of a lifetime gig. Not many mangaka really get to step outside the role. Very few get to. Most of them continue making manga for the rest of their lives, consulting on manga or adaptations of their work, sometimes becoming character designers, but kind of always circling that sphere of the manga industry. Now, in terms of Look Back itself, when we see that Fujino is getting really busy with Shark Kick, which is the parody version in Look Back of Chainsaw Man, and Kyomoto is doing Chainsaw Man related paintings like the door that Denji sees, that to me is more evidence that these two characters do indeed represent the two aspects of Fujimoto's artistry. However, this whole point where Fujino is on the phone and she is calling to get more assistance to help work on Shark Kick, and that's when she gets the call about Kyomoto, I think is Fujimoto admitting that there is a point where you get so busy with the manga that you can't really see that there's going to ever be a chance to kind of go back and work on other things. You are kind of fully committed to just making manga. And while it's not impossible to go back and work on stuff, maybe after Chainsaw Man finishes running or what have you, it's very difficult to see ahead. It's much easier to look back. It kind of makes perfect sense for the way it ends how it ends. As far as I know, I'm not sure how easy or difficult it is to go to college after a while in Japan once you're an adult. I know in the States it's pretty simple. You can go to community college and then apply for a bigger college, like if you wanted to go to an arts college. Not to say that it's impossible to go to college and then become a mangaka. Many mangaka have done it. In fact, the godfather of manga, Osamu Tezuka, went to college to become a doctor. He went to medical school and then ended up making manga. It's not impossible, but there's definitely something here that Fujimoto is kind of going to is processing and lamenting maybe a bit, maybe grieving another side of his artistry that he feels like is either gone forever or he's not going to get to explore for a long time due to the sheer pressure and demand for working on Chainsaw Man right now. So that's just my interpretation though, but let me know what you guys think.